Well, we all know that Emirates is the king of Dubai, but what about the number 2 man? Today in the ones, we're going to be visiting FlyDubai's flight number 1, which operates from Dubai International Airport over to Doha International Airport over in Qatar. For those of you who are new to my channel or maybe just unfamiliar with the ones, it's a series that I started earlier this year, and the goal of it is to visit every flight number 1 that exists in the world. Today's flight number 1 on FlyDubai is mostly because this route is one of their busiest routes and one of their earliest routes from Dubai International Airport to Doha. Now at Dubai International Airport, we're pretty much all familiar with Terminal 3, which is the Emirates home terminal. Over here at Terminal 2, this is the FlyDubai terminal, and there's a couple other smaller airlines, but FlyDubai kind of runs this side of the airport. This is the only terminal on the other side of the airport, and it's set up more like most of the Middle Eastern airports and a little bit less grand than the Emirates Terminal 3. I'm also particularly excited because we're going to be flying into an airport that was previously closed until this year. Essentially, the Doha International Airport is different from the Hamad International Airport where Qatar's home base is now. The Doha International Airport used to be Doha's main airport until years ago when they decided to open a bigger and better airport. Until then, this airport has pretty much been closed until the World Cup came to Doha this year, and they decided to reopen the Doha International Airport just for the smaller flights within the Middle East. We had the privilege of taking advantage of this limited time offer, as it does seem like the airport will once again close back down once the World Cup leaves town in a month or two. With that out of the way though, we're checking in here at the FlyDubai counters. You'll see the economy counters, the Emirates Skywards priority counters, and the business class counters. We're going to be heading over to the business class counters to check in for our flight today. The reason for the Emirates Skywards priority counters is because FlyDubai works very closely with Emirates in the sense that you can almost think of it as a regional carrier of Emirates. They work some of the shorter routes on an all 737 fleet. So if you have Emirates priority, it translates over to FlyDubai. You can book FlyDubai tickets with Emirates miles, and you can earn Emirates miles on FlyDubai flights. Bag checked and boarding pass in hand, we're heading off to the security and passport check here at Terminal 2 at Dubai's International Airport. Much smaller than what you'll find at Terminal 3 in the Emirates terminal. Once you're through security, you'll find not much hanging out here in Terminal 2. You've got, of course, the duty-free shops just through security and currency exchange type stuff that you'll find at every airport internationally. But other than that, there's really no other shops. You've got a few restaurants, and we'll check those out in a little bit, but this is pretty much the entirety of the shopping area of Terminal 2 here at Dubai. There are also no jet bridges here in Terminal 2. You'll notice all the seating, and then people walk through the doors and onto buses that bus them out to the planes where you get up by the air stairs. The other thing you'll notice on the far right there's a business class gate. So for those passengers traveling in business class, they can head to their own special gate to avoid all the overcrowding and get a little bit of snacks and beverages while they wait for their flight. We will check that out when we get on board our flight, but before that, we're going to wander around this terminal just a little bit more and go explore what the lounge here has to offer. Now the restaurants here are pretty much normal as far as the chains you would expect. You've got McDonald's, KFC, Subway, Starbucks, stuff like that. There's nothing really local, it's mostly the chains that you've come to know and love in all these big airports. Now I want to check out the FlyDubai Lounge. Now the lounge here is not super grand considering that it's an all 737 fleet of flights about 5 hours or less, so they don't have to have too much. They look more like if you made a lounge for a budget airline in a sense. Now it is still about 4 a.m. here considering that my flight was leaving early morning, and so it was pretty empty and they were still cleaning up from the night before, but we're going to head inside and see exactly what the FlyDubai Lounge has to offer for us. Now the FlyDubai Lounge has 2 floors, neither of them is too big, but you can see here the bottom floor is dedicated mostly for eating and using the restroom. And so you can see some seating here. At the far end of the room you can see the food options, which we'll go explore here in just a second. And to the other side of the room you'll see some more seating to wrap up basically all that this bottom floor has. As far as the food options go, first thing you'll notice is just some fruit and some pastries right next to some healthier salad type options if that's what you're in the mood for. Next to that, you'll see some hot dishes with an assortment of food options. All the dishes they offer in this lounge are halal, which makes sense just considering the part of the world we're in, and that's what a lot of these people are looking for when it comes to food. Next to that, you're going to see a wide assortment of sandwiches and wraps, enough to pretty much keep anyone happy. I ended up going with a cranberry turkey wrap that was absolutely fantastic. And then of course, when it comes to the drink options, as always, they've got some sort of coffee machine. For those of you guys that are looking for coffee, it also just has hot water if hot chocolate or tea is what you're in the mood for. And below that is an assortment of juices and sodas for your choosing. And right next to that is going to be your coffee type pastries, along with fresh water, sparkling water, and a little bit more choices of soft drinks down below that. Now that plus the restroom is pretty much all you've got here on the bottom level, so I want to head upstairs to see what that just has to offer. This time of the day, it was mostly left for sleeping, considering passengers who got in the night before and had early morning connections were trying to rest up. So the upstairs level overnight, they have the lights off, and you'll see they have some lounging type chairs for those of people that are trying to get a little bit more sleep before they get on board their flight. But we're still going to come check out what the upper level has to offer as they get it ready for the next day. Over in the far side there, you can see some lounge type chairs where people are getting a lot of rest, and other than that, it's pretty much just some more seating. You do have a bar up here as well as some more food options, and we can go get some food over there. I decided to hang out up here because it was much quieter this time of day once people started filling in the lounge. Obviously this time there was nobody there, but people started coming in about a half hour to an hour later after that. Before that, it was pretty much just a couple people that were taking some naps upstairs. After killing some time, they finally got the lights on upstairs, and now you can see the whole thing in its glory, completely lit up. So I got a seat off to the side. You can see the bar next to me. They had soccer on the far TV the entire time, and other than that, it was still pretty empty with a few people filing in for their early morning flights. I took this as an opportunity to go grab some food. You can see the cranberry turkey wraps that I got that were absolutely fantastic. The homemade hummus was also fantastic with some meat and capers to go along with it. And then a little slice of baked cheesecake that they offered, which was also pretty good. After that, I figured it wouldn't be my first time at Dubai Airport if I hadn't gone and done some plane spotting. So I took this as an opportunity to leave the lounge a little bit early, go hang out by a window and see exactly what type of planes we had taking off. Of course, you're going to have majority of Emirates Airlines taking off here at Dubai, between a mix of 777s and A380s, but the foreground of the FlyDubai 737s was setting the perfect mood for the flight that I was about to set foot on. The views is the other thing that you can't really get from the other side of the airport. From Terminal 2, you get a view of Terminal 3 and the control tower, which is beautiful, but the backdrop of that is the city of Dubai, and more to the right, what you'll see in a little bit later of a shot, is more of the downtown area of Dubai with the Burj Khalifa and everything included. All the economy passengers on board our flight are going to be boarding here out of gate F8. You can see it set up here for the Doha flight, FlyDubai flight number 1 with an 8:50 departure. We got to the airport plenty early because of a connecting flight, but even still, the boarding area was still filling up nicely for my flight. Here you can see out the back of the terminal, each area has a bus, and so you walk through the boarding gate and you get on whatever bus is going to your flight, which should be directly outside the boarding gate, and that bus will then take you out to the flight that you're getting on, where you can then board by air stairs. At this time, the boarding area was filling up pretty well, and the rest of the boarding areas were getting pretty crowded. With this layout of the terminal, it gets very crowded very quickly. Luckily, with a business class ticket, I get access to the business class boarding gate, and so I've decided this would be the perfect time to go over to that business class boarding gate and see exactly what was over there. And here we are on the far side of the terminal. On the right side next to F1, you'll find the FlyDubai business boarding gate, and it takes you around the edge and off to a side room dedicated for only those passengers traveling in business class cabins. Not even status of Emirates Skywards can get you in here. It must be a business class ticket. That being said, FlyDubai business class tickets usually aren't too expensive. However, this short flight was incredibly expensive. For whatever reason, I couldn't find a cheap date for it. So this route ran for about $1,000, but most of their routes you can get business class tickets for about $500. And just like Emirates, all those routes start in Dubai and go to other places. Now the views from this much more private area were pretty nice. You can see here the assortment of buses and airplanes lined up at FlyDubai. You basically get a whole view of the main part of the terminal from here. So that was kind of nice to see the hustle and bustle and know that I was in this little more secluded private little area. There's also only one boarding gate here in this area, and there's a gate agent there that just announces which flight they're boarding at that time, and the few people that are traveling business class on that flight go and get on board, get on their buses specifically for business class passengers, and get brought out to the airplane. So they can do one at a time that way. It's still not too crowded and they don't need multiple gates. The seating options here are not overwhelming, but there's really not that many people, and didn't even get close to full in the time that I was here, even though it was a pretty busy time of the day. Another thing you'll notice over to the side of the entrance here is a separate little area where you can go get more food and drinks while you wait for your flight. This came in handy considering my flight ended up being about an hour delayed. So I came over here and I grabbed a little bit more breakfast items to go with me. You can see I got some of their Arabic coffee and some dates, which is always appreciated in this part of the world, as well as just a nice little coffee snack to go with. You can see here the spread that I got as I sat here and got comfortable, as I figured it would be a little while until they called for boarding. Now if you look at this board, you'll see that my flight to Doha is at the very, very top of the board. You'll see it's in the final call status, however, I'm not boarding yet. The reason for this is because the business class passengers on this flight is actually the last people to board. The reason they do that is so that you can get on board, the door shut, and you take off right away, so you don't have to worry about sitting on the airplane while the rest of the people get on board and figure it out. So they finally called for our boarding, and we went outside and got on our specifically business class bus out to our airplane, knowing full and well that the entirety of the plane had been boarded besides us, meaning that it would be a quick departure once we got on board. Now stepping out of the bus, getting onto the airplane, I was told by the ramper that I was not allowed to record the airplane from the outside, so I got whatever shots I could, and I'll slow it down a little bit for you here. I was able to get some great shots when we got to Doha, and the rampers were more than happy to help me get a good angle of the airplane before we got on the bus to go into that airport. Now the seat in the business class configuration. This is on FlyDubai's 737-800. You can see it's the normal couch style business class with a little bit extra decoration. I was a little bit upset because when I had booked this ticket, it was a 737 MAX, which the MAXs actually have lie flat business class, and this product was changed about a week before my departure date. But at this point I figured it was more important to get to the airport that was about to close than to get to an airplane that's going to be around for a while. So I do have a trip coming up next year where I will be trying out their lie flat product on the MAX 8, but for now we're going to enjoy the couch style service. Luckily, because it's in a 1-1 configuration in row 2, there was nobody sitting next to me because of the last minute equipment change. Before departure, they came around with some beverages. I went with some apple juice as I settled in nicely to my seat and waited for our quick departure. As far as the seat storage itself goes, you can see the aisle seat doesn't have as big of an area underneath the seat as the window seat does. However, because of the ginormous center console, there's plenty of space to stash your bag there. The seat back in front of you doesn't have a ton of storage. You can see just a hard small pocket at the bottom there in order to store stuff. And to the left side of your leg, or right side if you're in the middle seat, there's a soft little trough as well here for you to put some stuff in. They'll give you a bottle of water and a headset to go with your flight as well. The headset was nice in order to watch the in-flight entertainment, although it was not very comfortable at all. That being said, this flight was about 45 minutes, and so I didn't need to watch a whole lot of stuff anyway. Now, as far as the in-flight entertainment system goes on this flight, it was fairly limited, which is to be expected considering that most of these flights on this airline is within the Middle East, Eastern Africa, and Eastern Europe, where there's not a ton of English speakers anyway. That being said, there was quite a bit of English speaking options, that thing considered. So there was enough to keep me occupied, of course, on my 45-minute flight, and a few movies, so if the flight was longer, I probably still could have kept myself occupied. Before departure, they came around with a warm towel for us, scented of course, and it was a nice start to the flight. They do this before the flight just because the flight itself is so short that they basically have to put their entire focus on the meal service. Speaking of meal service, I decided to take a look at the table and the seat before we got in the air, considering that I'd probably be busy once we got in the air. The table was actually tough to get out and kept getting stuck. I kept pulling on the ring. In doing that, I also noticed that there's quite a bit of damage to this seat. The 737-800 is their older business class product here, and as we look around you can see multiple signs of wear and tear on this seat. I wouldn't be surprised if they start swapping this out for their lie flat product, as well as what they have in the MAX 8. You can even see that here on my seat, every time I would raise my headrest, it would just slide back down, and with that headrest you can still see plenty of dirt and grime that's built up over the years on this seat. Now as we taxi out, I was fully taking in the views of the Dubai city and the airport as we taxi out. So with that being said, I'm actually not going to speed this up. If you want to skip ahead, I'll have some timestamps so you can skip to the takeoff or just after takeoff as well. But for those of you sticking around, bask in the views of Dubai with me as we taxi out. Now here's something new. This is complimentary on this flight, probably considering how short it is and maybe because of business class, but you have to pay for different packages to get certain privileges on your seatback TV. So we had everything included, which included the map, TV shows, movies, and everything here. But usually if you want some sort of entertainment options on your seatback TV, you're gonna have to pay for that service. Now, as far as seat adjustment options go on this flight, they were pretty basic for a couch style first class. You can see the recline here. The recline was actually extremely comfortable. And then the other button you're gonna have there is gonna be for the leg rest. So by pushing that, you can extend the leg rest. A pretty comfortable seat, however, if you do have a seat in front of you and they recline all the way, all of a sudden you've got a seat back sticking all the way back in your face. And if it does come to getting out to go to the restroom, or in the case of emergency evacuation, I can imagine that being a tough situation. You can see here, once the person in front of me reclined, that top of that seat back was right in my face, and the angle of the TV screen unfortunately was not fully built to accommodate this, as this was about as far as it went, so it was pointing pretty down to the floor. As they prepared meal service here, you can see that I was able to finagle my tray table out of my armrest. It's actually a pretty big tray table as far as the size goes, and it's somewhat decorative with the chrome on it. However, unfolding it, because of its shape, makes it kind of a weird butterfly type shape where it really pinches off in the middle, which was kind of strange, but considering that our meal was served to us on a tray, it fit anyway. Now, for those of you who are looking to charge your devices on this flight, each seat comes with a universal charging port on the front of the center console. In addition to that, on the seatback TV, there's a USB power port. However, I will give you a fair warning that although my device said that it was charging on the USB charging port, it still was losing battery slowly. So the universal power port may have been my better option as far as charging goes. Then came our breakfast meal, which was pretty surprising considering you can see here our time since departure was 4 minutes. Our estimated time until arrival was only about 40 minutes, and we were already served our breakfast. They pretty much had it ready to go and it was nothing special, but that makes sense. In all honesty, I was just happy to have anything considering this flight was an entirety of 45 minutes from takeoff to landing. Another thing I noticed is that the carpet patterns are actually pretty wonderful on this airplane. I like the seating carpet, and next to that on the aisle you can see the carpet there. I like that as well. And there was a little bit of extra padding in the business class area, and so the carpets were actually not only decorative but fairly comfortable as well. About halfway through our meal, the captain started his descent about 20 minutes into the flight, and so that meant we were approaching Qatar, also signified by the shallowing waters filled with the oil drilling platforms. As the shoreline of Qatar came into view, I tried to get some good videos of it, but y'all, check out how dirty this window is. No matter how hard I tried, I could not get my phone to focus on the land outside because it thought that I wanted to focus on the dirt on the windows.
السلام سمعتكم ومرحبا بكم في دوحة حج الرسال الآن.
And with that, guys, I welcome you to the limited edition Doha International Airport, the airport that was closed except for a couple months this year in 2022. This is not the Hamad International Airport, where most of you are familiar with the home base of Qatar. This airport is serving only for the airlines located locally in the Middle East, flying the narrow-body airplanes into town and leaving Hamad International Airport for the rise in long-haul traffic. Pulling in here to a gate all the way far removed from the actual terminal, it looks like they actually did have a new terminal that they constructed for this. I'm not sure if it was the terminal that was in use back in 2004, 2005, whenever it closed, and they just revamped it, or if it's actually an entirely new terminal, but we were parked fairly far away from it. So getting off the plane, we actually got on a bus once more and took that bus far across the airport to the airline terminal. Here we got one last view of our 737-800 before getting on board our bus over to the rest of the terminal. Now, one of the things I found interesting about this airport is that there are some pretty ornate buildings around the border of the airport. Each time we drove by one, I thought that might be the terminal, but we just kept driving. At what looks like it may have been the old terminal back when airlines served here was all private jets. A number of private jets scattered around the airport, as it seems like this is the main destination for those people chartering jets to the World Cup. As we drive, you can see some more of those more ornate buildings, all of which I thought could be the terminals we drove around, but we just kept on driving. Off in the distance, you could start seeing the city of Doha, and in addition, you could see a few of the World Cup stadiums scattered around the city, as it looked like most of the city was entirely set up just to accommodate this World Cup at the moment. Finally, we pulled up to the actual terminal where we were able to get out of the bus and go through our Qatari customs. But before we head inside, I got one last view of the stadium, and right next to that is the cruise port with millions and millions of cruise ships. Inside, we headed to the customs that also looked like it had been set up solely for the World Cup, as it looked like most of the machines and stands were brand new. Over here was a special arrival service that looked like something you could purchase access to, although I didn't see it on the website before I came here, but it made for expedited customs and dumped you out over by the check-in area. Once through immigration and passport control, we headed out to baggage claim, which once again looked like it was set up fairly recently and was completely decorated for the World Cup. And as we head out to the curb here, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you guys to Doha International Airport, not Hamad International Airport, but the previously closed and recently reopened for a temporary time, Doha International Airport. I definitely enjoyed my FlyDubai experience. The Terminal 2 at Dubai was definitely crowded, but the business class areas made it feel a little bit more exclusive, although I don't think I need to spend as much time as I spent there this time. Arriving a couple hours before the flight should have probably been enough. I am a little bummed out that I won't get to try out the lie-flat services, but I will do that definitely in a future video, so stay posted for that. The airline itself was great, the flight was pretty nice, and I was definitely surprised to have a meal on a 45-minute flight. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of FlyDubai as a cheap Middle Eastern alternative to a regional airline. And stay posted for more videos. I will be back with you soon. Peace.